Have a good meeting. We are live.
All right. Good morning, everyone. This is Wednesday, December 15th. It is 10 a.m. and this is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners. We are coming to you virtually. We are being transmitted live on YouTube and we are being recorded. First item on our agenda would be to call the meeting to order, which I have now done. We have all three commissioners present, which constitutes a quorum. Next item on the agenda would be the adoption of the consent calendar. These are items of a routine nature or items that have come before the board previously. At this time, if a commissioner or staff wish to highlight an individual item, they may do so. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to adopt the consent calendar as presented.
I will make a motion to adopt the consent calendar as it is presented.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I believe Commissioner Jacobson did say aye.
Aye, yes.
Okay, so that motion passes. Thank you. Next, we'll move down to three discussion items. And the first item is the Lincoln County fee schedule changes for 2022. That is just around the corner that year. County Counsel Ewell.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm going to have staff bring up the fee schedule. And so, as you know, you are allowed to look at fees twice a year under statute. We have a few fee changes for some of the departments. You can just scroll down to the second page. And these fees will be effective January 1st of 2022. So the clerk's office just has some adjustments for passport copies. And then for plats that get recorded, there is a fee increase associated with those. And this is for a partition, a subdivision, or a condominium plat. Planning and development. Do I have Planner John O'Leary on the call?
I'm here.
I'm just going to let Mr. O'Leary discuss the addition of the planning fee.
Yes. Good morning, commissioners. The addition of a Measure 49 claim deposit and administrative fee, that's new. We just haven't had that process codified before. We're just kind of developing that process to be consistent across the state with other counties that have these processes in place. Please let me know if you have any questions on it. This is a fee and a deposit amount that is derived from some research that I did with other counties. It seems to be consistent, and the deposit is intended to cover administrative costs associated with processing Measure 49 claim that are frankly unforeseeable until you actually get a claim. So we collect a $5,000 deposit, we'll process the claim, we'll expend part of that $5,000 on a cost. It's generally going to be a hearings officer that's going to utilize that amount, and then whatever's left of that $5,000 will refund back to the claimant. But yeah, that's what that is. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. O'Leary. And then, commissioners, the last fee adjustments are with the animal shelter. There's the adoption fees have been adjusted to be more in line with what they have seen in other counties, and the fees haven't been raised in quite a while, so they're just trying to be consistent.
Okay, this is a discussion item and will come back to us in 2 weeks because we will not be meeting next Wednesday. Any questions or comments, commissioners?
I do have a question about the adoption fees. I think Sheriff Landers was maybe on the call. Does that, with the increase in fees, does that still allow us at certain times to decrease fees? I know certain times when we've had a whole lot of kittens or something, we've had, specials, for lack of a better word, to try to, rehome those animals or something. Would we still be able to do that with the fee structure we have?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, for the record, Curtis Landers, Lincoln County Sheriff. And Council Yule touched on it. These fees really, we were probably the lowest in the state for most of the animal shelters. We have people actually coming over here just because of our low fees, which is good. We still want to be competitive in that sense to basically move dogs and cats as quickly as we can out of the animal shelter. But with everything that's involved and staff time to prepare, this raise really is much needed. And one of the things that when Lieutenant Russell, as the interim manager over there, looking at the budget and noticing where certain areas could see a little work in, this was one of them that she looked at. But yes, I don't see any reason why we still can't run specials when we're overflowing with kittens, to help, again, just as sales do, help push the merchandise, so to speak, and move the animals out. So I think that's in the best interest of the animals too.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Again, that will come back to us in 2 weeks. Again, we're not meeting next Wednesday. All right, next item on our agenda would be the Lincoln County Community and Economic Development Grant Awards. And we have with us Paul Schutema, who is the Executive Director of the Lincoln County Economic Development Alliance. And welcome, Paul. Tell us the decisions or recommendations, the recommendations that your fine board is prepared to make.
Absolutely. Good morning, and thanks very much for having me here. And I'll kind of go over a few little stats, then we can kind of go over the recommendations, and then I've got some comments from our board on the process, and then you can hit me with any questions I can hopefully answer. All in all, we had 17 applications started through the online portal, and 12 were submitted. Those were across both the smaller and larger. One of the things that I did after the envelope closed was verify the nonprofit or municipal status of all the applicants, and one was deemed ineligible. They were not a nonprofit or a taxing body or a governmental unit. And also one of the grants during the review process was deemed ineligible by our board, and that's the Children's Development Network, for two reasons. One, you can kind of look at the score, but it was all those funds were for staffing costs, which aren't really allowed through this program. And it wasn't really intelligible what they were looking to spend the money on. So in total, there were 3 of the larger grant applications, 2 in broadband, 1 in housing. The one that I deemed ineligible due to the fact that not being a nonprofit was a larger childcare application, but it was an individual who wanted money to start a childcare. It didn't fit within the program.
Excuse me, Paul.
Yep.
Casey, could you show us that spreadsheet that was up there? That's what I was looking for. Thank you. All right,
Okay.
Back to you, Paul.
Okay, so we ended up with those 3 larger grant applications and 8 smaller grant applications. There was one snafu at the submission thing, which was the developer who was doing the online application had it set up to automatically shut down at 5 p.m. on the due date. But I guess there was never a conversation with what time zone that shutdown was going to be. So that ended up shutting down at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time instead of Pacific Time. But I was able to go in, and Christy and I were both able to go in and see that there were a couple grants that they were trying to finish them at that time, and we got them to finish up their grants. So that was okay. That was a mistake on the website. Also on October 26th, we had a grant workshop, kind of brought that back. I kind of set that up, and Christy.
Where's my glasses?
And Christy and I did that together. It actually went really well. We got some good comments. We had 9 attendees, potential applicants for that workshop. And then we also recorded it. We had one watched a video replay and answered some questions to be able to verify that they actually watched it. We may come up with something a little bit more formalized if we're going to do a video going forward, but that was good enough for our board. So if we go to the sort of scoring overview, we'll start first with the smaller grants, which were up to a $15,000 maximum. And you can see the total points scored there. One thing I will say is that the quality of the grant applications this year was greatly improved over last year. And that was really nice to see. There was some really good stuff there. I'd like to think that the workshop helped a bit, but I also like to think that, you know, folks are kind of being a little more thoughtful about this. And if you kind of look at the scores, what I will kind of say is that this was a consensus agreement as far as the smaller grants from our board, as far as the allocation of the total $70,000 funds. If you look at the view, the future, it was recommended by our board for a lower level of funding. And if you look at the scores, that one was not all that much lower than some of the ones that were recommended at full funding. But one of the discussion areas was things like the Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon has a very large community, positive community impact for those dollars. The View the Future is a really cool thing. It's for portals on either side of a trail bridge. A really cool project, but it didn't seem to the board to have that large of an impact, hence the recommendation for a smaller award amount there. And again, the Children's Development Network, that was a request for staffing dollars, which really isn't what this grant tries to do. And its score kind of took it out of the running. So I guess before I go to the larger projects, are there any questions on the board recommendations from EDALC?
Questions, commissioners? Hearing none, I'll ask, what's the total recommended amount on the smaller grants?
That was 70,000. What we were instructed was there was 130,000 total. 70,000 was going to be the smaller grant. 60,000 was going to be the single larger grant.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then for the larger projects, we ended up, as I said, we had 3 of them that were eligible. 1 was a housing project and 2 were broadband projects. If you notice, there isn't a recommended amount there. Those are all sort of set to be the $60,000 level. But our board, since this was kind of new, wanted to kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of punt that ball to the commissioners. But also, if I did include in the packet the recommendations, our board reviewed those grants as they scored all the other grants. But then we also had subject matter experts for the different areas. And for the broadband grants, we had Joe Fresnel, who is the president of Blue Mountain Networks, who doesn't do any direct work in Lincoln County. So we thought that was a good separation there. But he is also involved in regional broadband and is very knowledgeable on middle mile implementation, software, all those cool things. And then we had Brad Smith out of Corvallis was recommended. And we kind of went with a little further distant recommendation because with Northwest Coastal Housing, because like Commissioner Hall recommended an external expert, that was before we knew who the applicant was going to be, and we tried to separate as much as possible. And if you look at their scores, they kind of match what our board scores were, which was the highest scoring and largest bang for the buck was the Pioneer Telephone Cooperative, bringing fiber broadband to, I think, a little over 200 businesses and homes in Walport. It's a pretty sizable, like 7 to 10 to 1 leverage of the county grant dollars. And it was that impact. All of the larger projects seemed good. The Northwest Coastal Housing was for 1 housing unit, So the whole scale of are you moving the needle? And it is challenging when you kind of scoring these, and I kind of respect some of our board's hesitation here was because there's such different areas, like how do you define the value of moving the needle? And the Oregon Coast Community College was providing laptops and access points for students. There was a comment both by our board and the subject matter experts that what was not included in the grant was any kind of IT support, and bringing 40 plus laptops running Windows to people who are not IT folks and having no support is maybe a recipe for frustration and madness if you've ever had to work in the world of Windows 10. So if you go with the scores and the subject matter experts, it would be that the Pioneer Telephone Cooperative grant for Wallport Fiber was the top there, but our board decided to defer to the commissioners on what you wanted to do with this inaugural one. And I guess I'll pause here for questions on the larger grants, and then maybe just do a few comments from our board on the process and where they feel things stand these days. So any questions?
Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Jacobson.
Not so much a question, but just I really appreciated the external reviews which we were provided on those three larger projects. I know we have a diverse Economic Development Alliance board, but not necessarily in those three areas. So I think having the external reviews was really, really helpful. And just to kind of hear the perspective of those experts on, as you said, what is going to move the needle forward. So thank you for doing that added step. I think it was helpful in evaluating those projects and understanding, at least for me, and understanding how some of those subject matter experts think about some of those proposals. So I thought it was helpful.
Excellent.
Commissioner Hall, any questions or comments?
Just want to echo what Commissioner Jacobson said. Bringing in the subject matter experts, I think, proved to be helpful in this process, and I would expect it to be the case in the future as well. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think it makes it so that it's a fair process. My kind of outside but involved perspective is maybe next time around, if the commissioners decide to keep this larger grant portion of it, maybe a little more instruction and consistency with the subject matter experts to try to equate apples to apples. I don't think it was a problem here with any of the scoring, but I think if we'd like to see that there be some more larger applications going forward, and there's a little refinement we could do there. So in, with our board's comments on the larger grants, since this was kind of new, one comment was that perhaps having the same functional application for those two grants, the smaller grant and the larger grant, maybe did a bit of disservice to the larger grants, because maybe there should be an opportunity for maybe either a little more documentation or things like that. The entire board was extremely pleased that the commissioners took this on, doing a larger grant. I thought that the idea is really good, and they would like to see how it develops over time. I did ask our board the devil's advocate question: should there only be a larger grant? And the thoughts were, it's probably a good idea to have some lower hanging fruit for some of the smaller organizations, because those are essential. There was also comments that the three category areas, housing, broadband, and childcare, are infrastructure and do create some base conditions for economic development, but the intersection and the impact, the economic impact, is pretty far down the road. So maybe there could be a few different questions in the application on how to connect the infrastructure project with an economic benefit, and perhaps some more precise metrics on the larger grants. Leslie Ogden on our board commented that their Samaritan Foundation used to do smaller grants in their realm, and has gradually moved over to doing only larger grants in certain targeted areas because they found that it moves the needle a little bit more. So she didn't really have an opinion of should this only be a larger grant, but she thought that this move was very good. And our board was also really happy that over the last couple of years, some of the changes and improvements they'd like to see in the program have been implemented. And the process went well. And this year, the technology and the web-based applications were infinitely better than last year. It was last year, I don't know if you ever looked at the raw applications, but the entire budget was in a single cell of a spreadsheet, which is kind of hard to discern. This worked really well. I think Christy and I made a good team, and it was a pleasure doing that workshop with her. And I feel like the quality of the applicants was great. And I guess in my thoughts is it was a pleasure to serve on this program, and it's pretty exciting to see some of the good work that could be done should the commissioners go forward and take our board's recommendation. And at that, I guess I will wrap up and go. Are there any final questions or comments?
Commissioners, final questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Hall.
Yeah, I know we're kind of going through a broader evaluation, reevaluation of this program. And I can certainly understand, that at some point you have to ask, are you thinning the soup too much? Are you making a difference? But during I think it's about 20 years now that this program has been in effect, we've had good, in addition to good projects, good geographic penetration for the projects as well. And again, we've heard from organizations, I don't know, like I'll just pick at random, the Logston Civic Club, that, organizations that really don't have the capacity to do any kind of sophisticated grant applications, but can do and often are successful in grant applications through this program. So just something I'll be keeping in mind as we look at the future of this program.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Commissioner Jacobson, thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I guess I would just say, we calling off a single large $60,000 project was a big change to the program that we made this year. And I would just be inclined to continue what we did this year and see if those large projects we pick in the next couple of years, how they turn out, and if they do move the needle forward. And I think our thinking in doing that was that sometimes economic development projects, take a little bit more money to actually, achieve something. And so I would like to, just kind of, we can make tweaks to the application. I think that's fine. But I would like to see where, this larger project we select and goes, and if we think that's beneficial before we tweak it again. I think it's helpful to stick with the change we made for the next couple of years before we reevaluate. We had 3 projects this year that went through that larger grant application process, but as word kind of spreads and maybe we tighten in or zone in on what it is we're asking for, we might see some really additionally innovative projects come forward. So I would be a fan of just letting the changes we made kind of play out here in the next year or two. And like I said, changes to the application process or whatever, I think those are fine. And Paul can certainly work with Christy on making those changes. And I'm glad to hear that this year the online portal worked a lot better for people. Great.
Yeah, I'll just second those comments, both commissioners. I think it's encouraging to note that the quality of the applications seem to be of a high level. That's encouraging. The fact that there is a geographic distribution of the funds, I think, is a positive. And I think change in this case probably is best done gradually. Let's, as Commissioner Jacobson said, see how the different projects play out, how effective they are. And certainly, I think this is a very positive first step, along with the other improvements that Paul mentioned earlier, and reflect positively overall on the program and its goals. So I think we're heading in the right direction. Let's continue to go slowly and see how effective we are in the future. With that, I'll also make note, just for the record, that although I am an ex officio member of the Economic Alliance Board, I did not attend, nor did I participate in any way in the ranking of these applications, and will reserve my role as a commissioner. But again, for the record, I was not involved in any way on the ranking or evaluation of the applications. With that, this will come back in 2 weeks for a decision. It looks like commissioners will need to think about the large projects. Other than that, any last comments?
I guess I would say that, our board echoes the commissioner's thoughts that, you'd like to see how this changes and develops over time with this larger grant, and they were very supportive of that. And I could see, now that we've got one of these processes under our belt, maybe some little changes we can do in some marketing early on to get the word out a little bit more about the larger grant. So, we've got some things that we can do to kind of tweak, but thank you for the opportunity to let us review these and play a part in some good things happening all across Lincoln County. So thank you very much for the time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Don't run away yet, Paul, or disconnect away. I just wanted to affirm what Commissioner Jacobson said. I would encourage you to work with Christy as far as tweaking the application. Clearly, some of the things that the two of you have been able to do in the past have worked well. So encourage you to continue that process. All right. And there are no other comments. We'll move on. The next item on the agenda. And again, thank you, Paul. Next item on the agenda is the first reading of an ordinance number 524, establishing local county procedures for processing claims under ORS 195.300 through 195.336 and declaring an emergency. Council Burbidge, I believe you will present this to the board.
Yes, good morning, board, and thank you. I am an assistant county counsel working under Christian Yule for Lincoln County. And I think the first order of business when these come up is to ascertain from the board if we can read by title only.
Title only is fine with me.
Me too.
Me as well.
Okay, this is establishing local county procedures for processing claims under ORS 195-300 to 195-336 and declaring an emergency. Commissioners, I'd like to give a little background to this, if it's okay.
Please.
Okay. Let's look historically at the matter. Oregon voters initially passed Measure 37 in 2004, which was later modified by the Oregon legislature and approved by the voters in 2007 as ballot Measure 49. Measure 49 provides that if a state or local government enacts a land use regulation that restricts a residential use or a farm or forest practice and reduces the fair market value of a property, then the owner may qualify for compensation under ballot Measure 49. And Measure 49 is now codified in ORS 195-300 to 195-336, which you see at the top of the ordinance there. One of the provisions in the statutes, 195-305 sub 5, tells us that local procedures for processing of local claims may be adopted by a local jurisdiction. And that's what this is about. So in other words, if someone were to file a Measure 49 claim, we would process under the guidelines of the statutes in 195, but it's not it's not tailored to a local community. And so our provisions tell us, for instance, who's going to review these claims, how is the hearing going to be held, and so on and so forth. Measure 49 and the related procedures are not land use. And this ordinance does not involve land use procedures, and the board decision to act on this ordinance is not a land use decision. And you can see that we did not place this in the first chapter of our county code. This applies only within the unincorporated area of the county. So measure 49 claims, for instance, in the city of Newport, would be handled under their procedures. It applies to any measure 49 claims that may be filed. And so that transcends anything that may flow out of STR initiative or anything like that. So let's talk briefly about what the Ordinance 524 would do. So it's going to amend the Lincoln County Code and add new sections 7.1005 to 7.1040, and that's under general administration. It's going to tell us the procedures for filing, review, and final determination of these Measure 49 claims. And it's going to be supplemental to other procedures found in ORS 195-300 to 195-336. So how is this going to be handled? Well, graciously, the Department of Planning and Development has said that even though these aren't land use, that they will handle the claims. So the claims are going to be filed with the Department of Planning and Development on forms prescribed by that department. As you heard earlier, we talked about filing fees earlier today. This will require a filing fee. It's going to require an appraisal. And the claims are initially going to be reviewed by the Lincoln County Planning and Development Director or his or her designee in the future, okay? And the decision on whether to approve a claim is going to be made at a hearing, which is preceded by public notice. The public notice looks a lot like, well, looks like land use things in terms of notice goes out to the neighbors and to the LCD and so on and so forth. And the notice will be at least 30 days in advance. The hearing will be conducted, it says, by the board or its designee, but I think our County Council Christian is envisioned that we would hire a hearings officer to preside over these hearings. The ordinance goes over the criteria for approval, and the standard is substantial evidence, which is similar to land use. A final determination is made within 180 days of the date the application is deemed complete. And goes over what happens if a claim is approved. The board has two choices. You can authorize payment for reduction of the value of the property, or you can authorize the claimant to use the property without the application of the subject land use regulation to the extent necessary to offset the diminution in fair value of the property. We don't have a local appeal built into this, but the statutes provide for judicial review in ORS 195-318. This ordinance declares an emergency. What I'm contemplating is that this will come before the board again on December 29th. And that would be the second reading. And if you would like, you could approve it on that date to be effective immediately. I'd ask if the board has any questions about the ordinance.
Commissioners, questions or comments?
No questions from me at this time, thanks.
None from me either. It seems pretty self-explanatory, both in written text and in Councilor Urbage's comments.
And I will only comment that for an attorney and for some of the legalese that's involved in this process, I appreciate the clear and concise presentation. So I think it's obviously something that we need, and I think the resolution and the codes are structured effectively. So good work.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think what I would do, I would ask the board to see if there's any public comment on the ordinance, as this is a reading.
Okay. Happy to do that. Mr. Miller, do we have any public comment on this ordinance? I believe there's maybe one individual.
Well, Chair, I apologize. I did not filter specifically for that on my last look, but we can take a look real quickly by moving to our Smartsheet. So stand by. Let's see exactly what we have there.
Happy to do that. Mr. Miller, do we have any public comment on this ordinance? There's an echo there. There's maybe one individual.
Oh, sorry about that. Did I get an echo on you?
Yes, but that's okay. I don't mind hearing myself twice. Others might.
Yes. Scanning it now, I do not see any comment specifically on this ordinance.
Okay, Jamie Michelle is in the attendees window.
Yes, yes. Let's give her a little voice access to see if she wants to speak on this. Jamie, you should be unmuted now.
Good morning, commissioners. I have no comment today. Thank you.
All right.
Jamie, are you going to jump back in though later, or you're just watching?
I would like to keep that opportunity open.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Doug.
Okay, so we have no public comment at this time on this ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. What I would ask, just to be a little more formal, if the board would go ahead and make a motion to continue this for a second reading at your regular Board of Commissioner meeting on December 29th at 10 a.m.
I would so move.
I will second. Sorry, my mouse wanders and then I can't click mute quickly.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank
This
you
will
very much.
Come back to us for a second reading in 2 weeks on the 29th at 10 a.m. All right, move on to reports, and we have our COVID vaccination update by Public Health Director Florence
Commissioner
Portel.
meeting was all about
Whoop.
them preparing for Measure 49 claims period.
Jamie, we can hear you.
I'll go in there and put a fail safe in there. Okay,
Okay,
we're good.
all right. We're back to you, Florence. Thank you for your
Excellent.
patience.
Yeah, no problem. Good morning, everybody. COVID-19 updates. Ooh, almost 2 years in. Let's go to the next slide, please. Casey, just
Florence,
to cheer us up. Just to
Let's
cheer
start
us
on a
up.
positive note, not the fact we've been doing this for 2 years.
I was gonna say, thanks, Florence. Yeah.
You're welcome. The cheering holiday season, yeah. Okay. So here is what I wanted to talk about this week. Omicron, obviously. So here is what we know. We have detected at this time, I think we learned yesterday that we had at least 3 cases of Omicron in Oregon. What we know so far about this variant. So one, remember that the COVID-19 virus, like any other virus, it likes to mutate and change and adapt to its environment. So here is another mutation of COVID-19. So what we know so far is that it's likely to be more transmissible than the Delta virus, 2 to 3 times more transmissible is what we're hearing at this time. The other thing that we're hearing that is not very good news, it's out of the UK, is that it's very good at neutralizing the antibodies that have been created by your primary series of vaccine. And it's taking it down really, really well. And so that means that the efficiency of the vaccine in protecting you from getting a breakthrough infection is less. However, the good news is that when we get that booster shot, then the efficiency and effectiveness of the vaccine rise back up to 75-80%. So this means, as we know, one, the vaccine obviously is not 100% efficient as protecting. I think sometimes people forget about this and they relax a little bit their behavior, and then they're wondering why they got vaccinated and then they have a breakthrough infection and what's happening. Well, the vaccine is really good at protecting you, especially amazing at protecting people against severe disease and hospitalization, and it's not 100% efficient. So now that Omicron is with us, we really want to go get that booster dose. We really want everybody to go get their booster, because if not, like I mentioned earlier, because this new variant is very good at breaking through, even if you got your 2 first doses, that's not going to be enough. On top of a winning immunity, okay, because if you got that dose in March of 2021, we know now that the immunity is waning down over time. Okay, so please, people, go get your booster dose. Okay, we have the privilege to live in the United States where those vaccines are available to us. So let's do this. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, so what we're hearing about Omicron out of South Africa, because this is kind of where we have the largest cohort at this point, is that we're hearing, maybe this is not bringing up as severe of a disease as we've seen before. I would say be careful about this, because the cohort in South Africa is a young cohort. Okay, like we were talking about people in the 20s and 30s, and we have seen that those folks are usually experiencing a milder iteration of the illness than older folks. So I think it's good to wait and see what other cohorts and other countries are going to bring forward. So because Omicron is more transmissible than Delta, and because we're now inside and, keeping ourselves warm and dry, we want to be really careful as to putting those masks on and keeping our distance and washing our hands when we are in a public indoor setting. Those are all proven prevention and protection methods that have been implemented for 2 years almost now, and we know they work. So it is up to you to make those choices. The other thing that I wanted to talk about pertaining to COVID cases, because you will see in the graph that there is a trend down. But what we've seen, so I think we've talked in the past about the partnership that the Oregon Health Authority has with the Oregon State University, where OSU does a weekly wastewater sampling for surveillance purposes in a few counties, and Lincoln County is one of them. So what we're seeing for the past 2 to 3 weeks is, on a scale from really low to not detected to very strong, we have been standing at strong, which means that we're on the higher end of virus appearing in the wastewater in Lincoln City, Newport, and Siletz. And we think that we have a discrepancy here between what that data is showing us, that there is community transmission in Lincoln County, versus what we're receiving for COVID case reports. And we think that this is because people, now that there is more access to tests at home, people might be tested at home, and then they are not reporting that positive result to the public health department. So we're really encouraging people to report those results so that we can conduct an investigation and do contact tracing, and also have a good picture, a more accurate picture of what's going on in our community. We sent a media release yesterday. There is the website link on there. It is on the county website under COVID-19, and then there is a link that takes you to a survey where you can input that information. It is the second piece, the report a positive at-home COVID test, second box. And so then it's pretty straightforward. You can scroll down. And if you have an email, do it. And then that takes no more than 5 minutes.
And that's on our webpage, county webpage.
That's on our county webpage, yes. So Casey, if you don't mind going back to the county homepage. Okay, so on the homepage, it's under the what's new box on the left-hand side. You go to find COVID-19 testing and vaccination. You click on that, and then you scroll down, and this is the second box, report a positive at-home COVID-19 test to public health. If you do not have access to internet, it is absolutely fine to give us a call. And you can see here, if you cannot complete the form, call public health at 541-265-4112 extension 1. Okay. All right, we can go back to the presentation. All right,
There we go.
so in terms of vaccinations, a reminder that all individuals 16 and older are now eligible to receive a booster shot. So that's important to know. Obviously, the 16 and older are going to be eligible to receive a Pfizer booster. Reminder that we're going to do our last fairgrounds clinic on Friday, the 17th. We're welcoming everybody. If you do not have an appointment, please just show up. And we will be able to get you vaccinated, boosted, second dose, third dose, whatever you need.
What hours is that clinic open?
That's a good question. Let me grab that right now. From 9 to 4.
9 to 4, okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then we've talked about this a few times now, but so when we're done with the fairgrounds part of the clinics, we are going back to our regular outreach mobile clinic model, and we'll have a set schedule starting in January of 2022. And you can check the website for the calendar of events. And what we're also going to try to do is to make sure that we have testing options available for people at those sites. So I would say go to where can I get a vaccine? I don't know if it's been posted yet, but let's see. So, and remember also that Samaritan offers vaccination. So we haven't yet posted the schedule. And I think the reason for that is that we're waiting for a few more partners to confirm that we can use their facility on a recurring basis. But we will post it as soon as we have it. Any questions?
Questions or comments from commissioners?
Yeah, I do have a question. So about the Omicron variant, you said that, it was very good at neutralizing antibodies and having breakthrough infections. My question is though, and it might be a little early to know, but what is the data on the severity of those breakthrough infections? Are people still needing to be hospitalized? Are people faring okay?
Yeah, I haven't seen I haven't seen the data there.
Yeah, like I said,
Yes.
maybe a little early, but I'd be
Yeah,
curious
maybe a
to see
little
that
early.
as it comes out. Because I think since the beginning of the pandemic, we've certainly not wanting to have, an overflow in our hospitals. That's always been the bottom line, at least for me, is trying to make sure that we still can provide, support and care for people. And so, while breakthrough infections aren't great, for me, the bottom line is always making sure that our hospitals are going to be able to care for people if they need it. So as that data becomes available, I'd like to see it. Thanks.
Yeah, obviously. And Casey, if you want to move a few slides down, please, there. Let's go to the local hospitalization slide, like here. Okay. So back, you were good. Slide 5. Yeah, excellent. So you can see here that pretty much we are at the lowest we've been in quite some time now. I would say in the past 3 to 4 months in terms of people being hospitalized with COVID-19, both at the North Lincoln Hospital, and you can scroll down one more slide, please. And then at the Pacific Communities Hospital, okay, we're barely, like they haven't had patients for quite a few days now, which is good, we talk to our hospital partners every Monday and check in, and they're feeling pretty good and ready to go in case, we're seeing a surge. Any other questions?
Other questions, comments? I'll just emphasize the fact, and again, you made this observation or comment, Florence, that well, apparently the Omicron virus is a little more effective in breaking through on those that have been vaccinated, fully vaccinated. The booster, getting a booster seems to some degree counter the ability of the virus to break through those individuals that have boosters. So I think that's an important piece of information.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments? All right. Thank you for the good information, and we'll look forward to hearing from you again in 2 weeks. So,
well, I won't be here in 2 weeks, but you will be hearing from Jane.
I'm sure there'll be a good representative in your absence, yes. But we will miss you. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
All right. Next item on our agenda would be commissioner reports. Commissioner Hall, you're first on my screen.
Yes, one thing I actually should have mentioned at our last meeting, because it happened the day before that meeting, but I met with the leadership of Community Services Consortium and Val Hoyle, our labor commissioner at the CSC offices. And the legislature last year, or actually it might have been earlier this year, gave Bureau of Labor and Industries funding for 9 positions to investigate claims of violations of fair housing laws. And those positions, Commissioner Hoyle said, are going to be placed throughout the state. And she was very interested in having the coastal person co-located at CSC's offices in Newport. And no commitments were made at the meeting, but basically a strong receptivity on CSC's part to talking about how to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the good work. Commissioner Jacobson.
Yeah, and Sheriff Landers can chime in on this as well, but myself and Sheriff Landers and 2 deputies from the Sheriff's Department attended a kind of community meeting yesterday evening in Otis, really talking about safety and some of the crime activities they are having up there. And I don't want to say too much because I don't want those doing the various activities to know what the plan is, but really nice discussion. And we are planning, among other things, to connect them up to some of the leadership in the city of Siletz, who have worked very hard to deal with crime issues in their community and have done a really good job in turning things around there. So excited to see the community come together and kind of work with us on making a plan there.
Again, the message there is we're aware of the situation and working with the sheriff's office and other community leaders to address the challenge. So also good work by you, Commissioner. I'll just briefly mention, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I mentioned this last week or not, but I did attend virtually a meeting that was a joint effort by the Association of Oregon Counties and the Oregon Department of Justice. And it was really setting the stage for the prioritization of funding for courthouses. And at the meeting I attended, it was simply informational, but there will be a meeting in January on Monday. And if I look at my calendar quickly, I'll tell you the exact day. Monday, the 24th of January, there will be a meeting where the prioritization of funding for courthouses will be addressed. And our county is in the queue to potentially get funds for developing some architectural plans and other planning activities relative to replacing our courthouse that was built in the 1950s. So with that, any other reports? All right, move on to public comment. Any public comment, Commissioner, Mr. Miller?
Yes, Chair, let's take a look again at our, let's jump to our live participants. And I'm going to throw it back to Jamie Michelle and see if she did want to provide that 3 minutes today or not. So Jamie, you're unmuted.
Thank you, commissioners. I'll pass.
All right. Welcome and have a good day, Jamie.
Okay, Chair, let's jump to back again. Just a reminder to everyone, going to the county homepage and looking at the meeting for the day. And there we have input received since the last meeting. It's combined into one PDF. And so that that PDF is something we've taken straight off our Smartsheet here, which we really appreciate when folks fill out the Smartsheet, makes it so we can keep track of everything very well. And here are our Smartsheet submissions since last week's meeting.
Okay, thank you. And we do appreciate the public input, and I know those Smartsheet submissions, boy, that's a mouthful, are seen by the commissioners and are appreciated. So moving on, we do have an executive session. We will be recessing into executive session under ORS 192.660, parentheses 2, parentheses A, to discuss litigation. It's my understanding we may reconvene into public session to make a decision. With that, our next meeting of the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners will be held virtually on Wednesday, December 29th at 10 a.m. There is no board meeting on Wednesday, December 22nd. Wish everyone the happiest of holidays. And with that, we are recessed for executive session under ORS 192.660, parentheses 2, parentheses A, to discuss litigation. Thank you.
Okay, Chair, I'm going to